Hi, I'm Justin Scott, and I'm one of those people on LinkedIn who's telling you that if you're not using these tools, you're going to be obsolete. And I'm not selling anything, but what you're buying into is your own future as a developer, in my personal opinion. And to Ben's point, talking about how do you get to those 10x sorts of enhancements, and where is all these gains coming from? And just as a quick overview, my process is that I pull out my iPhone, I open a new note, I put it into speech to text mode, and I just walk around the outside of my house describing an application, just stream of consciousness. And I'll put in details as a security professional. I'll tell it, specific security frameworks I want it to follow, accessibility guidelines I want it to meet. I want a high contrast color mode in my CSS. I'll tell it specific frameworks to use. And I'll do this for 10, 15 minutes, just spewing out, general description, big wish list, all this kind of stuff. And I'll take that, copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, I need you to write me a prompt for Claude Code that's going to build this application. And then I'll paste in my garbage that I spoke out. It will then spit out a prompt that I then take into Visual Studio Code, plug it into Claude Code after I review it and do those edits and be prudent. And then I just set Claude Code loose. And I run it in dangerous mode. So it can run whatever tools it wants. It can run whatever commands it wants. It can do web searches. I'm on the max plan, so I have lots of tokens. And it's very rare that I'll get a full one-shot application build. But the demo application that I'm going to use in my passkeys presentation, which is coming up right after this, come to my passkey presentation. The demo that I'm going to use in that presentation was entirely built using, so-called vibe coding with Claude Code using this model. And I built the entire demo application, which is a enterprise sample SaaS application, in about 2 hours. And that includes all the login, authentication, one-time use codes, all the security framework, and it's built like a senior ColdFusion developer with 25 years of experience would build it, using all components and classes, and it can refactor that application. And so this whole demo was built out in a couple of hours, where somebody sits down and tries to do it by hand. This is going to be weeks of work to build that same application. So you can get those huge benefits, and you just need to be curious. You need to explore these tools. I haven't used Codex personally, but that's next on my hit list to look at. I know it's only been a couple of years, but we are eons past just, asking ChatGPT a question and, getting a single function call out of it. Some of these agentic coding processes like Claude Code and Codex are building full applications with one-shot prompts, and they'll do it in the background while you sleep.
How, Jess, we're gonna ping you with a couple questions. How advanced of programs are you trusting it to write or having success writing?
So just as an example, I have an idea for a desktop-based application that's part of my system administration and fleet management side that I would like to have written in Go. And it has built a fully minimum viable product for me in Go for the desktop, compiles just fine. A few bugs here and there I had to fix, but it coded that in less than a day with me having zero experience with Go. Now, granted, I'm going to pick that code apart by hand because I want to fully understand what it does. I'm trying to learn that language at the same time, so I'm comparing it to other online tutorials and seeing, is it actually following best practices? But I've been a developer for a long time, so I know what to look for versus somebody with zero technical experience coming in as a so-called vibe coder. Who's going to do it as a one shot, maybe not be able to fix the bugs, or, tell the AI to just keep iterating and testing until it works. And those people don't know what they don't know. And so that's where we're going to see those security issues, accessibility issues, because they just don't even know to ask the AI for that stuff. As seasoned developers, we should be making sure we include those things in our prompts. But it is entirely possible to build those applications. Now, none of this is in production at this point. I'm still tinkering with this stuff and using it to build demos. I'm using it out of my own curiosity, build minimum viable products. And that's giving me a lot of flexibility too, because I can have the application, this application for the desktop I'm writing in Go. I started it doing it in .NET. and I know a little bit of .NET. I know enough to be dangerous in that platform, but the application that it spit out in .NET, I looked at it and said, yeah, there's some dependencies here that I don't like. There's some architecture stuff that .NET has that I don't like for this application. So I'm going to shift gears and redo it all and go. And I didn't have an attachment to that code because I didn't write it. So I was able to just crumple it up and throw it away and not give it a second thought and say, great, go use that same prompt and rebuild it and go for me. And it did, and didn't have any problems with that. Now, before I put anything AI generated in production, I'm going to give it a full review because I don't trust it. But it's doing a much better job than just asking for stuff out of ChatGPT.
Now, there's an important point you mentioned there, is the fact that you can just crumble it up because you don't have that attachment to it because you didn't write it.
Exactly.
And so you're able to kind of try different things. And I'm kind of cheating here because I talked to him last night, so I kind of knew what he was going to say and I already had my questions ready. But yeah, so do you want to get into just talk about that for a second about how you don't have the personal attachment to the code?
Wait, can we just back up for 2 seconds though, because I'm curious how long it took you to get to this level of proficiency, because what people always, or what I hear people a lot say is, what I hear people say a lot is that it takes a lot of trial and error, and you have to really learn the tools. You have to see what works and what doesn't work. And again, part of the frustration for me is I feel like I get very different answers from different people. Some people say, oh, you have to be super, super detailed like you're being. And then other people will say things like, oh, actually, the more abstract and general you are, like the actual better code it can generate sometimes because it's not getting confused by all the inputs that you're giving it. And then some people say it's, oh, can be production ready code. And then like you're saying that this is a lot of maybe prototyping and design thinking and first pass code. How long did it take you to get to where you're feeling comfortable with this kind of a workflow?
About 30 years.
Nice. Almost there.
Yeah. So everything we do is built on top of other things we do. There's a dependency stack there that in my case is 30 years long. And to go into Ryan's points earlier about junior developers and how do we get those people up to speed and on board. Unfortunately, it's an iterative process. Like in 1995, you could get away with building a website if you just knew HTML. And you could go to Barnes & Noble and buy the 6,000 page book from O'Reilly, about getting started with Ajax calls and JavaScript and stuff. And we have all been there. Well, many of us here have been there from the beginning of the web, where we started with that. We started with HTML. We added the really bad JavaScript that Netscape introduced, in the late 90s. We were there at the beginning of CSS. So we've built all of these. The knowledge, and we have all this inertia that we have as developers. And somebody coming in today, newly minted, fresh developer, they have so many things that they have to understand from the coding standpoint, the languages, the frameworks, how does the web work? It's just an immense amount of information. And if you're going to build a modern web application from scratch, you practically need a master's degree in computer science to understand all of the different stuff, from database tuning to network administration, and how are these calls working and how is it going on the wire. You can get away with not knowing those things and still build an application. You can be a specialist in a given area. And there's probably a lot of developers here who are far better executing ColdFusion code than I am, for sure. But I think in order to do this stuff effectively, you have to have a wide breadth of knowledge. You have to be curious. And as a junior developer, you really just, like Ryan said, you need to go contribute to open source projects. You need to show yourself that you have the curiosity to tackle this stuff and be a lifelong learner and constantly be keeping up on the new stuff. Now, to go back to Ben's question, like how long did it take me to get this AI workflow going? A couple of weeks. For that part of it, but it's built on top of decades of prior knowledge and experience that I'm working on. But somebody just coming into new to AI now, like, yeah, you can use those tools and you can, write some prompts, but you really have to have that background framework to know what to ask for.